Okay, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Another voice here from the side who said, yeah, it's not something. Guys, yeah, everything is fine. Bit of a problem at home and stuff, but family is so healthy. Nothing else to be said to report other than a little bit of a fire across the street, but there's by the fire brigade. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, at least you got one of those. We don't, and that makes it very difficult. We are having a lot of call outs for fires over the last couple of weeks, and not just winter related months, but any time of the night to day and any time of the year. Rory, over to you. ZS6 RBJ and the net, ZS6 OPS.
Yeah, Summit. Nothing much to report from my side here. Finally got antenna in place and radio in place and workbench pretty much sorted now. So next step for me will be to get a couple of external antennas up, and then we'll be pretty much permanently on air as we used to be. So for now, not much else to report. There is 6 OPS, there is 6 RBJ.
Okay, good stuff there, Rory. Battis, over to you. ZS6 Victor India Lima. ZS6 Oscar Papa Sierra.
There is 6 OPS underneath. There is 6 here. Now, yeah, my side also all good. We safe down here. The person we just coming up and also one that is already passed. So we all fit and we all staying strong and keeping ourselves safe on the side. There is 6 OPS underneath. There is 6 there now.
Thanks, Battis. Richard, ZS6 RJV, ZS6 OPS.
OPS and this is RJB. Yeah, back in Gauteng from KZN, spent a week there. Just had to go and check out what normal temperatures look like. But good to be back and a successful trip, so all ready for the week to come. So there is 6 OPS and the next there is 6 RJB.
Yeah, no, that's not nice. I don't like you anymore. You went down to some sunshine and normal weather. Hey, I tell you, it's been a week of cold day. And I have felt it. All right, so there we go. Now, glad that you're back and all the other good stuff, and that everybody that's up on air is all safe and well. And I think, firstly, I want to make the following statement. Based on the concept that apparently EchoLink has got this identification running to ensure that the custodian of the EchoLink setup is going to be in a position to know that that network is operating and the rest of us, I think it's an excellent idea. And I think the rest of us should do the same thing so that at least amongst ourselves, we know, number one, that everybody else's stations are up. I do appreciate the fact that we might not know if you all fare, well and safe and well and all the rest of it. As long as your station transmits, that's all that's needed. Whether you're at your station or whether you're not at your station, it's actually irrelevant at the end of the day. Let your station put out, what would it be, 48 messages a day, just for, the one time that you want to check and see if it's working. Or in our case, at least, we know every 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. The one thing that we will have to do, guys, is we will have to coordinate the time so that every 5 minutes apart, at least, we can have CW or some sort of identification going through there, so that there's no doubling and all the rest of it. One of the amazing things that that seems to have been brought up with me in the last, let me clear the timer. All right, there we go. Z6 OPS returning. I wanted to open up another window here, and I think that I didn't do it. But anyway, one of the things that did come up, which was pretty interesting in the last week, was something called the radio amateur code. And I'd actually just like to read it out for everybody's benefit. However, I think I'm going to put this thing out for public knowledge because I put it in a South African, or in particular, specifically our area's context. So the radio amateur is considered: he or she never knowingly operates in such a way as to lessen the pleasure of others. Therefore, the South African context is quite simple. We will belittle radio amateurs when they fail to follow old, outdated procedures, or shall insist on having unwanted identification messages transmitted from EchoLink connections on an irregular basis. So if any of you would like to disagree with me, please, at the end of it, end of my overs, I will ask you just to give some comment. Moving on, he's loyal. He, she offers loyalty, encouragement, and support to other amateurs, local clubs, the IARU, radio society in his or her country, through which amateur radio in his or her country is represented nationally or internationally. The South African context of loyal. We'll only be loyal to the National Radio Society and our club. No, nothing else, nobody else, not interested in anything. Whatever they say, that goes, and that's it. Nothing else exists. So our loyalty most definitely does not follow any form of encouragement or support to amateurs who are not members of the societies or clubs or whatever, generally speaking. The radio amateur is progressive. He, she keeps his or her station up to date. It is well built and efficient. His, her operating practice is above reproach. Let me just clear the timeout timer. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning with the South African context. In other words, we will promote the sale of equipment which is not compliant with the regulations, and they ensure that as many amateurs as possible shall sound terrible. Perhaps this is to show that the expensive equipment is outside their reach. New ideas will be shot down, and anyone who agrees with these suggestions will be told that they are not welcome in general circles. Over and above that, and this is the latest edition following Conversations of the Week, we shall, in actual fact, in the South African context, become a Ludite or Luddite, whichever way you pronounce it. You guys can go and Google that one like I did when I was told it. He or she is friendly. Check the fat smile on my dial. But meantime, the South African context, well, before we do that, he, she operates slowly and patiently when requested, offers friendly advice and counsel to beginners, kind assistance, cooperation, and consideration for the interest of others. These are the marks of the amateur spirit. So in the South African context, this goes hand in hand with loyalty. It is here that when the powers that be tell outright lies, mislead and deceive radio amateurs, or who deliberately cause confusion in such a manner that amateurs start believing it would be best to rather give up or be a pirate, in such cases, radio amateurs are expected to say yes, sir, like sheep, and accept what they are being told, and all truths may only be whispered behind closed doors and out of earshot of anyone else. So I really hope somebody's recording my message and they send it out countrywide, because this is a personal opinion. Failure to comply with this makes you a troublemaker and stirrer, as you know, as you show no loyalty or friendliness. Right, so the radio amateur is balanced. And for those that have tuned in a bit late, we're actually going through the radio amateur code. Radio is a hobby. never interfering with duties owed to family, job, school, or community. Okay, so in the South African context, your commitment to a particular grouping of people is questioned if you do not attend all the functions or activities held by that entity due to family commitments. And with regards, community work, it is believed that this shall take place only when certain components state that this is okay. Let's clear timeout timer. Okay, ZS6OPS returning. However, on the flip side then, balances is so well scaled that a radio amateur's opinions amount to nothing unless that radio amateur spends his own money and time on all things entity related. The radio amateur is patriotic. His or her station and skills are always ready for service to country and community. All right. So in the South African context, this is a byword, this. So should never be used as it means you actually follow one particular party or group or otherwise, or another, regardless of whether it is in the interest of the country or not. Well, I thought I'd like to share that with you guys. Following many things that have been brought to the forefront again over the last couple of weeks by radio amateurs, not always for radio amateurs, but definitely by radio amateurs. And I thought, yeah, let me just throw this document together based on what's been said. So that is still a work in progress. So at this point, I'd like to know if there's any comments. If not, we're going to quickly look at the statistics. And I think I'm going to throw a curveball in this week. So let's have a look at this one. Any questions, any comments? ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, nothing else heard there. At least I got to clear my throat a bit. Guys, let's have a look at COVID-19. This week, our figures are, the figures are up and down all over the place. It's like a yo-yo. Globally, the figures have in actual fact come down. We're sitting at 2.7 million new cases this week. And, a month ago, we were looking at between 3 and 5 million a week. So the numbers have come down. We now stand at 175 million. 759,427. The global deaths has gone up by about 50 odd thousand by the looks of it. 3.7 million versus 3.7 million, so about 500,000 new deaths in the last week globally. On the South African context, yeah, I must admit, this is again, been a roller coaster ride right across the board. If we take a look at what do we have here? Where's this first one? The 9th of June, we had something in the region of, sorry, don't mind me, I'm just trying to get the page to open up, because now you either got to click through each and every single one of these infographics, or you've got to blow your screen up 500% in order to actually make out the wording that has been put in there. So if we take a look at the 9th of June, we had 8,800. Then on the 10th of June, 9,149. And then the 11th, 8,021. And of course, now the 12th, yesterday, we're back up to 9,320 with the total deaths of 114,000. However, the bad news, and if Keith is listening, I know he's like the electricity story, stating I am like the prophet of doom. So let's have a look at the bad news after the clearing of the TOT. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning. There was a statement issued today by the minister, or the who's this new not deputy minister, acting minister of health by the looks of it, that the FDA has been investigating a plant which has supplied one of the components to the J&J vaccine. Yeah, this was actually issued 2 days ago. And as a result of that, the component that's used to manufacture J&J that was shipped to South Africa, I think South Africa's manufacturing process, there's 2 million doses sitting in the Northern Cape or the Cape or one of the provinces that the department is probably gonna pull. 2 million doses that will be discarded and not used in terms of the vaccination, based on the contamination that has been discovered. And that, of course, now is really going to cause a lot of confusion and a lot of worry and concern amongst people who have registered for the vaccine, I think, and who have already had it and who might be considering having the vaccine. I'm not too sure exactly what the full situation is with regards to the contamination. I'm only reporting the news. And again, I think for those of us that are listening, even though you haven't called in this evening, we all have got a responsibility to our family, our friends, our neighbors, and our colleagues. We need to ensure that there's no fake news running around with regard to this. We need to monitor the news broadcasts on this very closely and evaluate it very carefully. Make sure it comes from a reputable source like the Department of Health, and I think only the Department of Health in this case, and not spread fear or cause panic or anything along those lines, but I think we need to be aware of it. The Department of Health has not stated that any of the contaminated vaccines have been rolled out, which is a good thing, because I think that would have been problematic in more ways than one. So just be aware of the fact that there is a batch of 2 million doses that will be pulled. And I think if people start coming up stating, yes, that all the batches, all the J&J, I think we need to just put the record straight there. Let me clear the timeout timer. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning. I think we really and truly need to just set the record straight until such time as any additional information is supplied. I think we need to really help each other out. So on that note, let me see, what else do we have? A couple of countries, Russia is another one. I mentioned it last week, but this week they again have told people to stay off work. Their numbers are going up. Various other Asian countries also numbers are going up. I must admit that the South Americas, very little has been reported this week. I think more focus in terms of the news slots has been on Israel and the new government that's been formed there, and of course Myanmar's protests and the likes thereof. Outside of that, nothing else from my side, except there was some incident in the US, I think, was subjected to some heavy rains and or fire, and Australia as well. So outside of that, not much happening. Are there any questions? Anything anybody wants to put in? Any other topic you guys want to look at quickly? Let's start at the top of the list. If so, add it, and we can cover it as we get through the list. If you do sign, just stick around until we finalize there. ZS6 SNY and the net, ZS6 OPS.
Nothing much from me, Church. I just had another little bee up my bonnet, and it is the safety of our MS personnel. I've heard some rumors that people are being injured when they go out to sea, and I am really worried about that for the future.
All right, so I'm going to cover that one in a moment there. Just before I hand it over to Rory, I just took the liberty of you over there, and I had a closer look at the the news release. It says the FDA has been investigating the plant following revelations that some of the batches may have been contaminated. We confirmed that the FDA announced that the 2 batches of these doses are safe and have been cleared for emergency use. The implications for South Africa are as follows. The vaccines awaiting distribution from that plant, Gababa plant, need further assessment by SAPRA, and SAPRA will soon advise if they are suitable for use in South Africa. There is now a real possibility that they may not be. However, this is for the regulator to rule on. So I think at this stage, hats off to the Department of Health for issuing an early presumption. Otherwise, it could have been considered as a cover-up. So I think we must follow this one closely, and we can tell people, no, it may have been, and it's still being investigated. And at this stage, it has not been rolled out as yet. ZS6RBJ, ZS6OPS in the net.
Yes, thanks, Chad. Yeah, I caught wind of that a little bit earlier, but I didn't look into it all too in depth. I read something along the lines of 600,000 doses, but I think the right channel to follow would be the Department of Health channels to make sure you're getting the correct information. This was a news story with regards to EMS being injured. Yeah, it's not just happening when they enter certain areas by the looks of things. There was a call earlier this evening where the guys were dispatched to a motor vehicle accident, and when some of them arrived, they were told to leave because the bystanders had actually attacked EMS. So, for whatever reason, it seems to be happening more frequently, and yes, but, it's not a good situation we find ourselves in. And also on another note in terms of the COVID thing, the hospitals here are probably on overload, as most of us know, and I've seen stories of guys having to find beds in other provinces. So, for instance, today there was a flight for a ventilated patient that went through to Richards Bay because there were no facilities to care for this person in Joburg. So, yeah, let's just try and look after ourselves, be vigilant. It seems to be a lot closer to home this time than it has been previously. So, just look after yourselves, and if you feel at all like you might have any of the symptoms, get tested. My wife and I just had tests on Wednesday. We both came back negative, but she had a lot of the symptoms, but I think it was just a general flu-like thing that she's got. Sorry, that was the timeout. Although she had cough, sore chest, sore head, all of the bits and pieces that go with it. Fortunately, she's on the mend now, and it didn't get worse. So that's enough waffling from my side, but thanks, Chad. I'll be standing by. That is 6 OPS, that is 6 RBJ.
All right, thanks, Rory. Yeah, and just before I hand over to Battis there, just to come back on the ambulance issue, Rory did cover the gist of it. The other thing that has happened in the course of the last week is, well, 2 things really. 2 days ago, Friday late afternoon, Clearwater Mall was subject to another armed robbery of one of the jeweler shops. The suspects fled. Half of them got away in their own vehicle. The other half ran towards Steuben's Valley side, and they hijacked one of the security response vehicles. And of course, they took off on that, but were apprehended at Maritzburg. Fortunately, there were no injuries to the security personnel. Shots were fired, vehicles were damaged. I think the security officer himself was saved by his vest. The other major incident when we start coming to the EMS, and I know that I've got a lot on a lot on the EMS side, which all ties back to this irritation that's taking place with EchoLink. Those of us that are placing ourselves in a position here to be available and on standby for other radio amateurs are actually having our rights and our license rights violated, because it means now that we cannot. You know, this afternoon, for example, Keith said to me, Chad, I know you're always there. And I couldn't very well say to him at that stage, Keith, I've got to switch off, otherwise I can't sleep at night. So if you do wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and you, Keith, are having hassles at home, you can't call me, because I probably won't be there. Because if I'm not awake at that time, my radio will 10 to 1 be off, because of the inconsiderate and childish attitude that is being portrayed with regards, in general terms, to what is happening with EchoLink. So the other major incident, let me clear the timeout timer. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning. The other major incident that occurred this week is following intelligence reports, a hijacking was averted. I think it was out to the Vereeniging area, and lo and behold, not only were suspects apprehended or taken out of commission wearing official police uniforms, but they actually used an official ambulance to carry out the hijacking. Now, if there is any time for our radio communications to start playing a major role and part as patriots in this country, now is the time. And this EchoLink issue must come to an end. Otherwise, we've got to get on the bandwagon. We've got to flood everything here and create major confusion. People's lives are at stake here. Coming back to what Rory said about hospitals on bypass. The figures as at the 12th of June, admitted to hospital, 7,448. Admitted in ICU is 1,452. And we've got 778 people on ventilators. Now, the amazing thing is Gauteng is 50% on both counts. In ICU, it's almost 75% of the total number of cases exist in Gauteng. The guys that are up on Zoom, if we time out, I'll reopen it. We'll pick it up afterwards, because enough is enough. Next letters are going off again to ICASA. Mark my words, it's getting there. So yeah, there's a lot, and as Rory says, it's getting closer to home. And Carl was telling me his sister has just lost stepbrothers in the Free State due to COVID and all the rest of it. So third wave, definitely a problem. The fourth and fifth wave, and even the sixth wave that has started to roll out in other countries. Guys, we're still headed that way. Okay, Batters, ZS6 VIL, ZS6 OPS, and Rory, if you can come up on Zoom just now, it would be appreciated as well. Batters, take it away.
Yeah, I must say, I was on the road today after a few stuff that I had to do, and I found on a regular basis people that's driving around with this vehicle that say don't take the vaccine. And it's the whole thing that there's a full drive around that to make awareness to the people. So I'm not sure where they're getting the information of the event, but yes, they also have a big drive not to take the vaccine. I know there's a lot of old people that need to take it, and they're getting confused with all this publicity of what they need. So it's very interesting of everything that is going on, and we need to be aware. But we also need to inform the people that they make the correct decisions going forward. That is it. Okay, that's the next everything there.
No, Batters, you're right. There is a major drive not to take it. Unfortunately, you know, from my perspective, and I think from especially our CERT volunteers' perspective, it's not for us to say you must or you must not take it. However, I also think it is time that I think I should just bring up another point that came to my attention this week. The new disaster management regulations, which were gazetted during the course of the week, now give the employers the opportunity or the legal leg to actually require workers to have the vaccine taken. Now, again, it's a bit of an oxymoron, and it's also maybe a bit of a double standard, where the regulation says employers can now, in actual fact, tell employees to be vaccinated before they come to work. However, the employee can, in actual fact, refuse on religious or personal, medical or personal grounds. So I don't know how you enforce a compulsory vaccination, and you've got that loophole that, well, on religious or medical or personal opinion, you can still avoid it. So that's something we need to take into account and also have a look at. Richard, over to you. ZS6 RJV, ZS6 OPS.
ZS6 OPS, the net ZS6 RJV. There's a few interesting conversations or topics milling around tonight. And I was just thinking, as the conversation has been flowing, the attacks on EMS workers in the previous life, I was in the Western Cape, in the Cape Town area, and spent a lot of time in the township, where these kind of attacks was at the order of the day. Now, we're talking a good couple of years ago now, going back at least 20 years or so, a little bit more. It literally came down to a point where EMS services were basically non-existent. For first response setup was entirely provided by the police at that time. And that literally included everything, whether it was injuries or fires or murders or what have you. The guys dealt with whatever was there. There was absolutely no EMS support. Then comments around the regulations. I find it somewhat confusing, and maybe it's just me. But over time, it has proved that they're not all that well written, and a lot of the changes from week to week. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think an employer has the right to request, but I think they also have the right to sort of terminate once there's some sort of proper reason. So if there's no form of conviction, however that's going to be measured, it seems to be up in the air. And then on the vaccinations, I'm just looking at the values in the UK, and their vaccination rate, I haven't been able to just check it straight away now, but it's very high. If I'm not mistaken, they're probably in the lead as far as the ratio of the population that's just been inoculated. And the mortality rate at the moment is very, very low indeed. I think the 7-day average is below 10 deaths per day. So the flip side of that is it was similar around about August last year, in between the waves. So I'm not entirely sure whether that would be the result of a vaccine or whether it's just a natural phenomenon. But they do also have a slight up curve in terms of the infection rate, and yet the mortality rate remains as if it was between the waves. So from my perspective, just looking at the numbers, that certainly does indicate that something must be working somewhere. Just giving it time. Continuing on that, what I've done since the COVID-19 pandemic started, or since we had our first case in South Africa, I kept a spreadsheet
I'll open Zoom now.
For today. And just looking at the Gauteng numbers earlier, and the previous